We're diving into a concept today that sits right at that intersection of psychology, nervous system regulation, and, well, identity.
Hmm.
It's a quiet, but I think a really powerful truth about how we navigate change.
It really is. It's about that moment when the blueprint you created for survival, it suddenly becomes the wall of your own prison.
That's a powerful way to put it.
It's a crucial hinge point in adult development, you know?
We're starting with a quote that serves as the foundation for this entire deep dive. It's from a really profound reflection by Helen Mudiva. She
Oh.
writes, "A moment arrives when the version of yourself you have relied on stops fitting the life you're living. A friendship breaks, a project collapses, a certainty dissolves, and suddenly the label you trusted to guide you no longer feels large enough for who you are becoming."
That phrasing stops fitting the life you were living. It's just so precise, isn't it?
It really is.
And before we even unpack what this means intellectually, I'd like to just invite you, the listener, to take a quiet check-in with your body. When you hear that quote, what shifts? Do you notice a sudden tightness in your chest or maybe your shoulders?
Or perhaps a softening in your gut.
Exactly. Are you holding your breath or maybe your jaw is clenching just a little?
That initial body check-in is really the entry point because the process we're exploring it's fundamentally somatic.
It is.
It's not just about changing your mind, is it? It's about updating the deep, nonverbal rules your nervous system created a long, long time ago to define what safety even is.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it continues our exploration of the pathway to sovereignty framework, which we've discussed in previous conversations.
Right.
And this framework gives us a map for how the nervous system, which is always prioritizing survival, it forms these protective identities.
The labels.
The labels. And it shows us why those identities begin to soften when external circumstances, well, they force a rupture.
And that softening is often terrifying because the label felt like solidity, didn't it?
It felt like solid ground.
We should probably mention that the 6 non-linear levels of the pathway to sovereignty are linked in the show notes for anyone who wants to revisit them.
Good point.
But our mission today is to, I think, ground this idea in real experience.
Yes. So we want to frame this episode around a quiet, sort of personal question for you.
And that question is, where has a label protected you so well that it also began to limit your becoming?
Mm.
And it's so essential. We acknowledge this right up front. Labels are not flaws. They're not failures.
Not at all.
The sensitive one, the provider, the strong one. These are necessary. They're actually brilliant strategies.
They're strategies your nervous system devised long before you had the language to articulate why you even needed them.
They were anchors.
Exactly, anchors. When the world felt chaotic or unpredictable or just overwhelming, that label told you precisely how to behave.
Right?
To guarantee the highest probability of safety or belonging or control. The problem only arises when the external environment changes.
But the internal strategy refuses to adapt.
That's it. That's the tension.
And that is the tension we are examining today. What keeps a child safe? The ability to read a room, the need to be highly competent. So often, it's the very thing that keeps the adult constrained.
It is.
We're going to look closely at 3 character studies from the article we mentioned from Helen Mudiva's piece. We've got Aria, Marcus, and Elena.
And each one experiences a profound rupture, something outside their control, which causes the protective identity they trusted to finally, well, to crack open.
So let's start with this idea of the protective function and the rupture itself.
Okay.
Let's begin with this concept of the comfort in the cage. The article articulates so beautifully how we rely on these identity labels without even noticing.
We really do.
They become these silent rules, don't they? They guide our actions, they dictate our priorities.
They even select the types of relationships we maintain for years and years.
And that reliance is rooted in predictability. The nervous system, it hates ambiguity.
It really does. So if I internalize the label of, say, the responsible one, well, then I have a predictable course of action in every difficult situation.
You know what to do.
I know what to do. I step up, I solve the problem, and then I'm rewarded with reliability and belonging. That reward loop, it reinforces the identity instantly.
It feels like control.
It feels like control, but as you said, the predictability, eventually it becomes a cage.
And the material makes a key distinction here. The protective identity, it works perfectly until the inevitable shift.
The rupture.
The rupture. And this is usually an event completely outside are a direct influence. A company downsizes, a global pandemic hits.
A family crisis, something you
Yeah.
just can't manage your way out of.
Right. And the protective strategy is designed to manage internal anxiety by controlling external variables.
Yes.
But when the external variables are uncontrollable, the strategy fails.
Yeah.
And it fails spectacularly.
Oh, it does. The collapse of that identity is terrifying because it means the mechanism that guaranteed safety for decades has just been nullified.
The mind just goes into a spiral.
It does. It says, if being the provider doesn't keep my job secure, then who am I? What am I even worth?
Which brings us directly to Aria. She's 32, and her identity is the sensitive one.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at how this label was formed for her and why it eventually became a liability.
Aria's identity formation is, well, it's a textbook case of hypervigilance born from early instability. The piece notes she learned to read the room and sense her mother's mood just from the sound of her footsteps in the hallway.
That's incredible.
It is, but this wasn't a gift, it was radar.
Yeah.
If she could predict the emotional climate, she believed she could preempt the chaos. So this capacity, this highly developed emotional sensitivity, it became her primary safety mechanism.
And because that sensitivity was so useful, she was naturally funneled into roles where it was rewarded, personally, professionally.
Absolutely. She was the one everyone confided in, the empath, the emotionally intelligent friend. She came to genuinely believe this was her fixed, unchanging identity.
Her core self.
Her core self. But the rupture for Aria is deeply relational. Her longtime friend group, it fractures violently over a conflict she literally had no part in creating.
But because she's the sensitive one.
Both warring factions lean on her. They need her mediation, her validation, her emotional capacity. Her whole system becomes completely saturated.
So how does her system respond to this overload?
Well, it returns instantly to survival mode. And survival mode for Aria means trying harder to restore harmony.
So more the same.
More of the same, but amplified. She starts apologizing for things she didn't even do just to ease the relational tension. She absorbs the anger and the hurt from both friends, believing that if she just carries it for them, they'll stop fighting.
She becomes a human emotional sponge.
That's it, exactly. And the nervous system, it doesn't differentiate between absorbing an external threat and managing an internal threat. When she takes on their hurt, her body experiences that hurt as an existential threat.
And the physical symptoms start to show up.
They're unmistakable. Crippling insomnia, constant chest tightness that feels like a vice, and a chronic stomach pain. Her system is screaming at her. This strategy is unsustainable.
So what's the shift? Where does the insight come from?
It occurs during a moment of radical self-awareness in therapy. The therapist doesn't offer a solution, but a simple, piercing question.
What's the question?
Whose emotion are you feeling right now?
Oh, wow.
And that question, it short-circuits the entire survival loop. Aria looks around the room, feeling this incredible surge of anxiety and anger, and she realizes she cannot determine if it's her own genuine feeling or an echo of her friend's conflict.
She'd called that lack of boundary empathy for years.
Yes. But now she sees it for what it is, over-responsibility.
The turning point, then, is learning that emotional boundaries are not walls. They're about discernment.
That is such a critical nuance. It's not about shutting down feeling, is it? It's about becoming sophisticated enough to know, I see your pain, I care about your pain, but this pain belongs to you, and I am not required to internalize it to prove my care.
And the first true act, integrity, of putting this into practice must be so difficult.
It's profoundly difficult, precisely because it threatens the old identity. For Aria, this means verbalizing the limit, saying, I care about what you are going through, and I cannot carry this level of conflict for you right now.
And just think about the terror of that moment.
Oh, yeah.
The old narrative is screaming, if I stop carrying this, I'll be seen as cold, selfish, or I'll be abandoned. Her survival system is predicting catastrophic rejection.
And the relief, the moment of somatic freedom, arrives when she says the words, probably trembling.
Right.
And the friend just pauses and maybe even looks relieved and says, I didn't realize I was asking you to.
And that's it. That's the moment.
That's the moment. The catastrophic prediction doesn't materialize, and the nervous system updates its definition of safety. The world does not collapse.
So wholeness for Aria is gaining this discernment. She realizes that true compassion does not equal responsibility.
Right. She doesn't lose her capacity to connect deeply. In fact, she gains the capacity to hold herself while connecting.
Freedom becomes the capacity that emerges from this.
Yes, she can feel deeply without losing herself to the feeling. She offers support from a place of capacity, not depletion. Her value shifts from being the fixer of broken things to being a person capable of holding complex emotions, including her own.
Which forces us all to ask that vital question from the reflection. Where have you mistaken emotional labor for connection?
It's a huge one.
It really is a distinction between performing a role
Yeah.
and simply being present.
Yes.
So moving from the sensitive one to the structural backbone. Marcus, he's 45, and he embodied the provider.
A very different label, but with the same root.
This is a label rooted in stability and control through utility, isn't it?
It is. Marcus's trajectory is often seen in individuals who had to, well, parent themselves or their siblings from a young age. The article notes his father left and his mother had to work 3 jobs.
So he stepped into that stability vacuum.
He had to. For a young nervous system facing chaos, the calculation is clear. If I ensure the food is there, the homework is done, and everyone is looked after, I can guarantee safety and, crucially, I have worth.
And this provided an incredibly strong foundation for his identity. He became the reliable senior manager, the anchor of every team he led.
Always staying late, absorbing conflict, making sure everyone else had what they needed, often at his own expense. His whole sense of self was inextricably linked to his utility.
The core belief being, my value is conditional upon my ability to hold everything together.
That's it. That's the code he's running.
So the rupture for Marcus, it hits his core belief system like a seismic shock. Corporate restructuring dissolves his entire team overnight.
And importantly, this wasn't due to poor performance. It was market shifts, budget cuts, variables completely outside his circle of influence.
Which is the critical point. His protective strategy, being essential, being stable, it failed to prevent the loss.
And the nervous system registers this as a double failure. There's the loss of the job structure, yes, but also the loss of the identity that promised protection from that loss.
So his survival response is what you'd expect, isn't it? Hypercompensation.
Exactly. He tries to save everyone through emails and proposals, but when the team is officially dissolved, he funnels that terror into relentless productivity.
Working through the weekend, taking on 3 people's responsibilities.
Believing that if he provides irrefutable proof of value now, he can prevent future loss and stave off that terrifying emptiness that follows the loss of an identity.
He's chasing control in a chaotic environment. The mind is just running on the fear of irrelevance. If I'm not providing, I am nothing.
And the tragedy is that this strategy requires a complete ignoring of the body's signals. You just have to numb out.
And the body is the ultimate arbitrator of reality. 3 weeks into this marathon, during a client presentation, his body just gives him no choice but to stop.
This is the physical collapse. It's a moment of total system failure.
What does that look like?
His vision narrows, he feels dizzy, his heart is pounding so hard he thinks he might pass out. His hands start shaking uncontrollably, making the clicker impossible to hold.
He has to excuse himself.
He has to. He spends 20 minutes huddled in a bathroom stall, shaking, cold, and utterly unable to command his body back into control. That's the nervous system screaming, I am offline.
And this forced pause, this humiliating loss of control in a professional setting, it creates the space for the hinge moment.
It does. His partner finds him late one night scrolling through restructuring documents and offers this profound observation.
What did she say?
You love being needed more than you love being known.
Wow, that is potent.
It's so potent because it exposes the underlying transaction. Marcus's relationships were primarily transactional. I give you stability, you give me worth.
So if he stops providing,
He fears he'll discover there's nothing left to know about him. It forces him to confront the terrifying question, who am I when I am not holding everything together?
the sheer terror is the fear of emptiness. If the armor of the provider is removed, what is underneath? Is it competent and worthy, or just?
Vulnerable and lost. And this is where external recognition becomes so crucial for breaking the pattern. He needed to see his own exhaustion reflected back at him.
Not just by his partner.
No, by others who understood the cost of that endurance. He initially dismissed the idea of a men's group because the provider doesn't need help, right?
Of course not.
But he attends out of desperation, and in that group, he finds it.
What happens?
He hears a story of a successful peer who physically collapsed at his daughter's wedding because he was still trying to carry the emotional weight of the entire family.
And that's the moment of recognition.
That's it. Seeing his own story mirrored in a stranger who is equally high-functioning and equally exhausted, it cracks the armor.
He realizes that his perpetual endurance wasn't strength.
No, it was a way to numb his own chronic, unmet needs. If he's constantly focused on fixing everyone else's oxygen mask, he never has to admit he can't breathe.
So integrity for him arrives when he finally allows himself to be honest about his limits. Publicly.
Yes. In a team meeting, a new wave of responsibilities is proposed, and he makes a radical choice. He pauses, takes a visible breath, and says, "Based on the current workload, I cannot take this on and do it well right now. I need support."
The words must have felt like a monumental failure of identity.
Absolutely. Yet the reaction was not dismissal, but immediate understanding and offers of help. The negative outcome he predicted, rejection, it just didn't materialize.
And the nervous system registers that crucial update. Admitting a limit does not equal abandonment.
Right. So wholeness for Marcus emerges as he learns to receive. He allows his partner to take on some household tasks. He delegates tasks to a colleague who is happy for the opportunity.
He learns that his acceptance of help doesn't diminish his competence or his masculinity.
It creates space.
And freedom, then, is shifting from giving out of depletion and obligation to giving from overflow.
Exactly. He remains reliable and valuable, but his worth is no longer conditional on having complete control. He's known for his presence and his capacity, not just for his utility.
And the reflection prompt here is a challenge for us all. Who are you when you're not holding everything together?
It's a deep question of innate worth, separate from performance.
It is. Okay, so our third character, Elena, she's a 39-year-old litigation lawyer, and she represents the identity built around intellectual and emotional impermeability, the one who never breaks.
Elena's fortress identity is one built on precision and being unshakable. Her origin story is often rooted in coping with emotional unpredictability in childhood.
If the environment was emotionally volatile,
The nervous system concludes, vulnerability is dangerous. Logic, structure, and emotional control are the only strategies for safety.
and she built her professional reputation on this, anticipating every detail, having a flawless argument, never showing a flicker of doubt.
And this control mechanism extended to her relationships. She quickly labeled others, the reliable, the volatile, the weak, as a way to maintain predictability and protect herself from their potential chaos.
Reducing people to categories serves the self-protection mechanism.
Absolutely. If I can label you, I don't have to deal with your complexity, and therefore I don't have to risk being harmed by your unpredictability.
Her career thrived on this until the rupture. A high-stakes, career-defining case collapses.
And crucially, it didn't collapse due to her lack of preparation. It collapsed due to a variable she could not foresee. A key witness unexpectedly changed their testimony on the stand.
The loss of control is absolute.
It is. And because Elena's system equates control with safety, her immediate survival response is massive overcorrection. She intensifies preparation, blames herself savagely, and tightens her grip on perfectionism.
But this perfectionism, once her strength, now feels like a prison.
And the physical symptoms are chronic. Her jaw aches constantly from clenching. She spends nights staring at the ceiling in her office, trapped in rumination. The tightness is physical evidence of her refusal to accept an uncontrollable outcome.
The true crack, the one that forces a genuine change in self-awareness, it involves a junior colleague she had consistently dismissed.
Yes, Elena had labeled this colleague as too emotional, inexperienced. It was a convenient category to keep that person and the vulnerability they represented at arm's length.
But the colleague, watching the trial, had noticed a tiny, nonverbal cue that Elena's rigid logic missed.
They mentioned to Elena, "I think they are lying. Watch their hands when they talk about the date."
And Elena ignored the somatic observation.
She relied solely on the established written record, and consequently she lost the case because the witness shifted the narrative.
The cognitive dissonance must have been immense.
Oh yeah. The very quality Elena dismissed as weak, emotional attunement or relational intelligence was the key piece of data she needed to win. Her strategy of impermeability cost her the victory.
Then the colleague confronts her later. The article gives us this moment of radical truth-telling.
It's a powerful moment. The colleague says, not confrontationally, but simply, "I think you do not trust emotional intelligence because you associate it with vulnerability."
And that phrase is a mirror held up to Elena's deepest, most guarded wound.
She realizes she cut herself off from feeling to stay safe, yet that very disconnection meant she was operating with limited perceptual data. She reduced her colleague to a category instead of seeing their complexity.
And in doing so, She reduced her own ability to perceive reality fully.
Exactly.
So her act of integrity is perhaps the most difficult of the three, because it requires demolishing her own armor in front of someone she intentionally diminished.
It's a genuine apology that is not career-driven, but soul-driven.
What does she say?
She says, I dismissed your insight because I was afraid of what it represented. I associated your emotional depth with weakness, and I reduced you to a category instead of seeing you fully. I am sorry.
That admission, I was afraid, that's the vulnerability she had spent her life avoiding.
And the nervous system learns safety through honesty. When she admits fear, she is not rejected. She is met with relational maturity.
So she begins the long work of integrating her split parts.
Yes, through relational intelligence and somatic presence training. This is complex work. It involves learning to track what her body knows, interoception, the subtle shifts in temperature, tightness, or expansion, before her analytical mind constructs a narrative.
And the foundational belief crumbles. Strength and vulnerability are not opposites, they are partners.
She starts questioning her automatic labeling of others. She asks herself, what am I protecting myself from by reducing them to a single quality?
Wholeness for Elena is integrating rigorous logic with fluid intuition. She remains a brilliant lawyer, but she stops being ruled by the need for perfect control.
She learns to hold her expertise lightly.
So freedom for Elena is being strong without being rigid.
It is. It's valuing competence and flexibility equally. Her value is no longer conditional on being unbreakable. She's human, and that complexity allows her to see complexity in others.
And the reflection prompt here is so personal. What part of you fears being seen without your armor? Okay, so let's draw these three incredible vulnerable journeys together. What Aria, Marcus, and Elena reveal is a common pattern.
It really is. Three distinct survival strategies. Reading the room, being useful, being unbreakable, all originated as necessary, adaptive responses to an unpredictable childhood environment.
They were systems of genius, in a way.
Absolutely. Aria's hyper-attunement predicted danger. Marcus's utility guaranteed belonging and stability. Elena's impermeability prevented emotional harm. They worked so well for so long that they just calcified into the fixed identity, the fixed label.
But when that external rupture hits, the friendship fractures, the team dissolves, the case collapses. The identity is shown to be too small.
The strategy that provided safety begins to stifle growth and, as we've seen, cause physical illness.
The key insight from the reflection is that this collapse is not a punishment or a failure. It is an unavoidable invitation for expansion.
Yes, and this is precisely where the Pathway to Sovereignty framework gives us the map for the movement away from the fixed label and toward a larger, more spacious self.
So let's meticulously map the 6 non-linear levels across their experiences.
Okay.
We start with survival. When the threat hits, the nervous system defaults to tightening the old strategy, often with great desperation. How did we see this?
Well, for Aria, survival meant mediating harder, apologizing for things she didn't do, and absorbing more emotions until her body was in chronic pain.
Then for Marcus.
It meant working through the entire weekend, taking on 3 people's jobs, convinced that if he just did more, the threat would recede.
Elena.
For Elena, it was that painful intensification of perfectionism and self-blame, locking herself in her office. In survival, the old answer is always more of the same.
Then comes stability. This is where the initial strategy is still active, but the patterns become visible because the nervous system is just tired of running the same impossible loop.
Stability is the dawning recognition that the system is costing too much energy. Aria sees herself apologizing automatically, noticing the over-responsibility but not yet knowing how to stop.
Marcus notices his depletion.
He does. He's observing his inability to regulate his work-life balance, but he's still performing the role. Elena recognizes her perfectionism as a defense mechanism rather than a strength, but she still relies on it.
They're in the pattern, but the pattern is now conscious.
Exactly.
This visibility leads into self-awareness. This is where the body speaks loud and clear, signaling the unsustainability of the strategy, forcing the pause.
The body is the mechanism of self-awareness here. Aria's stomach pain and insomnia physically force her to stop and listen to the therapist's question.
Marcus's racing heart during the presentation forces the collapse.
And Elena's aching jaw and sleepless ruminations scream that the rigidity is destroying her. Self-awareness is somatic. It's the point where the physiological cost of the label becomes undeniable.
And this somatic truth provides the ground for the shift into integrity.
Yes. This is the level where action must align with the deep internal awareness, even when that action feels terrifyingly vulnerable.
Integrity requires risking the old identity for the sake of the deeper truth. For Aria, this was the act of saying, I cannot carry this for you. She risked being seen as selfish or abandoning.
For Marcus, it was the admission in the team meeting, I need support. He risked being seen as weak or incompetent.
And for Elena, it was that vulnerable apology, I was afraid of what you represented. She risked being seen as wrong and fearful.
Integrity is the hinge moment because it requires choosing reality over the fantasy of control. The risk is taken, and when the feared consequence, abandonment, rejection, failure, when it doesn't happen.
The nervous system learns a new rule.
And that new rule leads to wholeness. Wholeness is the integration of the parts that were previously split by the need for the protective label.
So Aria integrates compassion with boundaries. She doesn't lose her sensitivity, but she gains discernment.
Marcus integrates providing with receiving. He realizes he can be strong without being perpetually self-sacrificing.
And Elena integrates rigorous logic with fluid emotional intelligence. Her vulnerability becomes a source of deeper perception, not a liability.
Wholeness is the move from either to both hand. The identity is no longer rigid. It is a spectrum of possibilities.
And finally, the last stage, freedom. This is the result of integration. The identity is flexible rather than fixed.
Freedom is the ability to step into and out of roles with fluidity. Aria can be the sensitive friend when appropriate, but she can also step back without guilt.
Marcus can be the stable anchor, but he can also admit limits and rely on others.
Elena can be the expert, but she can hold that expertise lightly enough to learn from a junior colleague. They feel large enough for the complexity and inevitable changes of life.
The fixed label is gone, replaced by a spacious capacity for being.
That's beautifully put.
It's so crucial to reiterate that this is not a linear staircase. We will circle back, won't we?
Always.
When the next rupture hits, and it always will, we might default back to survival, but now we have a map, the pathway to sovereignty, that illuminates the way back to integrity and wholeness.
The world will continue to change. Structures will dissolve. Friendships will fracture. External certainty is a myth. But the framework offers us an internal capacity to move through those changes without losing our center.
Without tightening into the old confining labels.
Yes.
So let's take a moment, having mapped the movement of Aria, Marcus, and Elena, and invite you, the listener, to sense into your own life with this framework in mind.
Where has life changed around you? A new career path, a major move, a new commitment, while your core protective identity stayed rigidly the same.
And where are you still gripping a role, a label, that once kept you undeniably safe, but now perhaps asks, gently, to soften, to loosen its hold?
Just take a full, quiet breath here. Let that awareness settle fully into your body.
This work of sovereignty is relational and internal, moving from the mind's fixed categories to the body's fluid, adaptive awareness. As we draw this deep dive to a close, let's hold on to the essence of Helen Mudeba's insight, beautifully articulated in the reflection we use today. Labels protect us until they begin to confine us. When the body feels safe enough to loosen its grip, identity becomes spacious again. The person you are becoming is always larger than the role you learned to play.
The liberation comes from understanding that your fundamental worth is not conditional upon your performance of that fixed role.
No.
It exists regardless of whether you are being sensitive or providing or being unbreakable.
Absolutely. Change begins not with the violence of abandoning identity, but with the quiet courage of noticing where a label has become both comfort and cage. And we leave you with this final provocative thought. What would happen if you let that label soften?
If the stories of Aria, Marcus, or Elena resonated deeply, if you feel that exhaustion or over-responsibility or the need for control tightening in your own body, we want to ensure you have the tools to continue this exploration in a grounded, somatic way.
We have two key resources that connect directly to this material. First, we have a free meditation and integration guide called Where Am I on the Staircase to Sovereignty?
And this guide is a gentle somatic practice. It helps you listen to what your body reveals when a label begins to crack. You notice where you are holding tension, where the resistance is, and how simply saying yes to what is present rather than trying to fix it allows the protective grip to soften.
It's about meeting yourself with compassion in the space between the stages of the pathway.
It is.
And the second resource is a comprehensive journal, Your Path to Knowing Yourself in a Changing World.
This is structured as a 21-day journey back to the steady inner ground that exists beneath every label. The reflections are designed to invite clarity, calm orientation, and a deeper connection with who you are beyond identity or performance.
It's a journal of presence, asking you to slow down and listen to what your nervous system needs, even when the world is loud and demanding.
Yes.
You will find links to both of those resources and the full details of the Pathway to Sovereignty framework in our show notes. Thank you for taking this necessary deep dive with us today.
We look forward to exploring the next layer of complexity with you soon.
Climb the staircase, breath by breath, with compassion and presence we rise from stress, from fear to peace, from shame to grace.